All right. I know I promised to add some music to my opener. I have not been able to do so yet. I am humbly apologizing. I will take care of it. I know somebody's going to say, "Oh my God, I didn't know if it was my audio equipment. I had turned it up, and all of a sudden I hear you talking, and it blew out my eardrums." I know it's going to happen, but I got Bulletnators producing because this is a caffeine corner. I got to put that in the title somehow, huh? Because it actually is our caffeine corner for the day. Has just been postponed later on to the day because the debate that we wanted to discuss. So we had to watch it first in order to discuss it. Amazing how that works, right? But I will add music to it. I'll figure something out. I promise. I did try to see if the other music that was originally on it would still hit me copyrighted, and it is. So it's
Are
content
you
ID
su-
match, and so
are you suggesting that we actually look at content before we start disliking it or talking shit about it or talking
I
good about
I
something?
I, I mean, I know it's a weird thing. It
Weird.
makes no sense to some people, but yeah, that's how we operate here. So yes, we did actually watch the debate. We'll give you guys a brief synopsis, I guess, from myself
I
and
already.
Ask a Philosopher Nick here.
I am pleased to announce that I already gave this show three thumbs down. You know,
Nice. And
just
you're because you have
haven't
three
watched it
stock
yet,
accounts.
but yeah, exactly. So
On all three of your accounts that you don't have? Actually, I guess you have two, right? You have your own channel, you have the In Time channel, so you just got one other one that we don't know about?
and the codex.
Oh, the Codex!
So
Oh, there it is,
He's
all three.
yeah,
he's actually Steven Steen too, by the way. Steven Steen for $2. Congrats to Wood on his easy win. Hey,
well,
I
that
did
didn't
disagree with
take
a little bit on
long.
that,
That didn't take
Steven.
long.
I'm sorry,
Oh,
Nick,
It's
on
nice to
his
see him
Steven
around.
Steen account. Yes, it's good to see you back
I,
there, Steven Steen. We missed you.
I love
Well, some
Steven
people
Steen.
missed
He's
him.
great. I did. I think he's great. Um, Although I was just confused about Mr. Wood's argumentation, only in that he didn't seem to bring any positive claim. He just wanted to say, well, this one doesn't. But without actually demonstrating how theirs does. Does that make sense?
Yeah, because the way I understood the topic to be, they're looking for what better describes a good foundational framework for objective morality, or just morality in general,
I think any
perhaps. Which,
morality, yeah.
yeah.
Or well,
So
ethics. Yeah.
yeah, ethics. I didn't really hear Woods arguing anything normatively at all. He did argue meta-ethically that objective morality is the case, and Matt Dillahunty accepts objective morality. I accept objective morality. I think Nick, you accept moral realism, don't you? Objective morality.
Well, yes. I don't object. I don't accept objective morality the way they're using it, objective or equivocating on objectivity. But in the way that you use it and Dillahunty uses
Okay.
it, yes, I accept it.
Okay, that's fair enough. And by the way, I don't begrudge you for that because the term objective is used multiple different ways in the literature. Even the same author can use it different ways. It's really
Yes.
confusing when you're reading something. You're like, okay, how are they using it in this particular way? Objective, subjective are twisted words in the literature, to say the least. So yeah, I do agree with Matt. Honestly, I thought I was going to be disagreeing with things more with Matt than I did. I thought he did pretty well.
Oh, that
I
doesn't
happen to
surprise
agree
me. I
with
kind of
him
figured you'd
on
be agreeing with him for the most part for most of this because it wasn't about because they made it about secular humanism.
Yeah, well, I mean, I'm not a
Yeah,
secular
that was
humanist,
smart.
although I'm not against secular humanism. Nick would be the expert on secular humanism because he has a codex dedicated to secular humanism, but they didn't really get into that either.
No,
Yeah,
they
they
did. They
didn't.
didn't. Yeah. No,
They
please,
got
Josh.
stuck. I think they got stuck. They seemed to get stuck because they kept hip hopping or I guess flip flopping about what kind of morals they were talking about, and then didn't actually get to whether or not one was going to be better than the other one, or vice versa, or what one brings to the table that one doesn't, etc., because they were too busy trying to decide what morality they were talking about. That was the actual concern I was worried about going into this debate, that they were going to get stuck on the term better, because that happens sometimes.
Yeah, and I saw them keep switching between normative ethics and then meta ethics and back to normative ethics and then meta ethics. Now, I happen to prefer normative ethics over meta ethics. I know Ozzy prefers meta ethics over normative ethics. Uh, I don't care which. It's just why do they stick with one? Because look, I'm okay with objective morality. I again, as Nick points out, the way I use it, the way that Matt Dillahunty uses it, the way Sam Harris uses it, that's typically how a lot of people argue for objective morality. I have no problem with that. But that doesn't really tell you what is morally permissible and what is forbidden. Like when Woods was talking about deontics. He's talking about what is morally permissible, right? Those are duties, like deontologically, they're duties. And so when we say, what does it mean to be morally forbidden or morally permissible? These are saying what are right or wrong actions. That's going to be something in our normative ethical framework to determine what is or is not the right course of action. And so I don't think focusing on objective morality is the way to go if you're going to be arguing, hey, I think the way we should argue morality is divine command theory or from God. God tells us what to do. What he says is good, is moral. That's the right course of action. That's it. Not us doing it, not the act of doing it, not the rule itself, not, the consequences, what makes it moral. What makes something moral in divine command theory is God saying it's moral, right? But I didn't hear that.
Well, and so the topic was which provides a better moral foundation. Well, no, that wasn't the topic. You see, this is the topic was different in the tweet than in what, because they had used the word ethical, and ethics and morality are two different things. So they had used during the debate what provides a better ethical foundation. Well, I'll give you an example of that in a minute. But what provides a better ethical foundation, God or secular humanism? But objectivity isn't anywhere in the title. It doesn't say objective anywhere in it. So they got stuck in objectivity. When I don't think they needed to. And I think Chesh made an excellent point, because one of the things that Matt Dillahunty had said was that there was no objection to secular humanism. No objection to secular humanism that is solved by the addition of God. None. And then he explained how and why, but I thought that was I think what Chesh, that speaks to what Chesh was saying, which was he didn't make any positive claims. He was just trying to say, like, well, here are your failings. And Matt Dillahunty was like, well, yeah, yours isn't doing any better than that. Which I don't think is the low bar, but yeah.
Yeah, but I've always said, look, when you're going to have a debate or discussion, both people need to bring some kind of positive argument. If one just sits back and says, look, I'm just going to throw negative arguments out there, it's kind of boring to me, right? But Woods wasn't arguing what is a good objective moral framework. What is a good grounding? I think Matt did, right? When Matt's talking about things like etymoia, and he's talking about etymoia, I hate pronouncing Greek words, or he's talking about human flourishing, or which same thing, harms and benefits, empathy, compassion. I think Wittgenstein actually grounds morality in empathy, if I'm not mistaken, as well. These are what I ground objective morality in, right? So we can look and say, look, if this is something that is an objective moral fact, we should be able to discover it on our own or through evolutionary.
Right. And I think Matt made a very good point.
Evolution. Yeah.
Right. And I think Matt made a very good point in making it not about, it's not about atheism, and we need to move that away. That's true. They made it about secular humanism, because atheism is not a moral quandary one way or another. It's just not a moral question. It has nothing to do with morals.
I agree.
Yeah.
The only thing I wish somebody would have asked Matt is, and I'm confused, and this is an honest question, is I didn't know he was a secular humanist. Secular humanist, Nick, correct me if I'm wrong, from my reading of secular humanism, that is a materialistic position. That is a ontological or metaphysical naturalist position. Matt is a methodological naturalist. He's not a philosophical or ontological naturalist. So if he's arguing for humanism, how come he's not falling under or holding to the party line, the metaphysical naturalism, which is a huge thing in humanism?
Well, if you remember when we read through that, right? We read through that secular humanism thing, and it had a lot to do with atheism and getting rid of religion. And Matt has said before that he might not believe maybe the epistemology of it, but he seems to follow like the ideals of what he would want to see to benefit moving forward.
Yeah, I think I think he had said too that he had helped pick that topic, and there were reasons he picked that to avoid certain issues and confusions, in particular about is atheism a moral system? It's not. He figured he could stay out of that thorn bush just by. I don't think he's a humanist per se. In fact, judging by sort of how that's not my view that he's a humanist, but I think he was arguing from that position just because it solves some problems.
Yeah, I agree with you, Nick. I don't think he didn't come across as how I would expect a humanist to argue. And again, humanists, I don't know how you can be a humanist and not be an ontological naturalist. They seem to go hand in hand. But other than that, like I said, morality wise, I thought he was doing a great job. I really liked the way he was explaining how you can build an objective moral framework from arbitrary axioms.
Yeah.
I have no issue with that. Now, Woods, I think I'll give you my opinion, Nick, and you tell me if you think I'm right and just. I mean, we know about Woods' background, right? And it seems to have.
We all know that Steve is never right. He's just not wrong sometimes.
Yeah. Steve is right. Not wrong. That's hashtag.
Never tell me I'm right. You'll never.
Yes, hear good. The end of it. No, nobody. Yeah.
I'll call you at 3:00 in the morning and go, "Hey, remember about 4 hours ago you said I was right?" I do that all the time. Okay, so since he seems to have these some kind of psychopathy, some kind of psychological issues. Could it be, though, maybe he doesn't really understand things like empathy and compassion, and so he has to kind of abdicate to some other thing, like to a deity, and say, look, I don't know what it is to be ethical because I don't understand what is right or wrong. I don't feel like a typical moral agent. So I'm just going to defer to whatever God wants. And therefore, hey, it's not me. I'm not saying this is moral or immoral. God's saying it's moral and immoral. He's just giving his ethical framework to what he thinks is a deity, which I think is, by the way, emotionally crippling, and I think it's ethically crippling. Because if you haven't gone through your life learning what is ethical and what is not ethical, and you don't develop these kind of instinctual things to kind of say, look, this is not an ethical action, this is an ethical action, and you just have to say, hey, what would God do in it? And half the time you're going to probably get it wrong, because I'm sorry, God did some pretty immoral things in the Bible, if it's still true. Do you think that's the case? He's just kind of passing the buck to say, look, well, God's just going to tell me what's moral or not?
I personally don't. Well, no, actually, no, let me rephrase that. Yes, I think you're right. I don't think it matters because I think his argument is held by a great many people. He's a sociopath. He acts like one, he talks like one, and I looked it up. He's confessed to being one. So he's a sociopath. I think people who are truly sociopathic don't. And I thought, so when he was talking about taking a hammer to his father's head, I thought that was a hypothetical. We make hypotheticals all the time. Sam Harris does the hypothetical of eating. Yeah, it was.
As soon as yeah, said that, I was like, that's not a hypothetical.
Well, it came out. It rolled off the tongue too easily. So I said, wait a minute. So I started looking him up. I was like, whoa, that's real. I was like, okay. He said it almost proudly, which was what the tip off. I think you're right. Yeah, Chesh picked up on it probably much faster than I did. So he's a sociopath.
I recognize stuff like that.
Yeah. My condolences.
Here's the thing with sociopathy, right? And it's that you're born with it.
Yep.
Right? So it's a matter of you have to learn how things operate in a different way. I think you could use God as a crutch or as of what works for somebody who is a psychopath, who doesn't know or what hasn't experienced and probably won't ever experience the average expectation of empathy and why people are doing what they're doing. But it's not something that's like a default that all psychopaths need a god to be able to figure out how to function in society normally. In fact, I would say probably many do. I can at least list one off the top of my head that I deal with on a semi-regular basis on Twitter. I love him. He's great.
Well, and just because they have these religious beliefs doesn't mean that they're sociopaths. So I think his arguments hold, even though I agree with you, Steve, in this particular case. I think that's what happened. I honestly don't think he believes any of it, to be honest. He makes decent enough arguments.
He didn't seem very convinced. He wasn't very convincing to me in anything that he was saying. But I have known a person who has actually said, I think Woods has as well, but I used to know a person in the community that actually said many times that if the Bible isn't true, if God doesn't exist, he would be going out raping, pillaging, killing, whatever. I mean, he'd feel no remorse because to him, I don't think he has these same normative type feelings that we have as what I consider to be a rational human being. And so in those kind of cases, I don't want them to lose faith, right? It's scary to think that.
Well, and that's what. First of all, he said he'd do that. He said he'd probably, at least he was honest about it. He'd probably
I
go
thought
back
I heard him
to
say it.
killing.
Yeah.
Oh, he did say that. And there was a great comment by actually Pat Harris. Pat Harris. Oh my God. Patton Oswalt does a great routine on the Bible, and he's like, okay, look, I'm glad you like the book, but and he starts talking about it. He says, on the other hand, if that book really is all that's keeping you from going out and murdering people, and just hold on to it, just keep it. Doesn't mean it's true. I'm not trying to. I think Dillahunty said the same thing. I think there is, but that I think also, by the way, proves Dillahunty's point.
Well, it's funny.
Well, yeah, it's not about. It's not about whether or not it helps you as an individual. That's fine. If you need it as an individual, okay. But you're not going to be very convincing to anybody who's not a psychopath, and at the same time, you're probably not going to be convincing to very many psychopaths either.
It's funny. I got asked today, and I've been asked before, how can somebody believe something without evidence, right? And I keep trying to explain to them, evidentialism is not the only theory in philosophy, right? In fact, I'm a non-evidentialist, or probably a moderate evidentialist at best. I think there are other ways to justify beliefs, such as pragmatism and prudentialism. I think this is a perfect case of somebody who probably is justified to believe that there's God, and you wouldn't want them not to, right? I mean, because again, think about this. You're saying it is better for that person to not believe in God than it is for them to go out and do some horrible things. This is one of those instances of having a false belief. Let's say you do believe that gods don't exist. It's better to have a false belief than not. And there are things of use, like useful fictions are false beliefs, but they have utility. So there are pragmatic reasons. This is what I think would be a pragmatic reason for somebody to believe in God, even if they have no evidence, and be fully justified to, because if not, they're going to be going around killing people. Just the way I'm looking at it, I guess.
Well, and that I do think that goes to his point. And again, they weren't actually doing divine command theory, which I'm actually sort of a proponent of. I do believe if there really was an all-powerful being that created us in the Abrahamic sense, I think you'd have to do whatever he told you. I'm sorry, but having said that, I don't believe there is one, so I'm off the hook. But let's assume for a second they weren't arguing divine command theory. What they were arguing, and Matt Dillahunty didn't go after this point, and I'm not sure why. What he was arguing was that there just happens to be a quote objective moral framework that exists because of God. But here's the next question, and Matt started with it, which is, if it's objective, why can nobody agree to it? And tell me one thing that you know is wrong objectively that all people who believe in God can agree on. And there isn't any. So where is this objective moral framework that's superior to the humanist model?
Well, things are going to be objective and people can still have disagreement, right? There's descriptive moral relativism where people they disagree, right? There's two major parts of morality. There's the descriptive part of it, and then there's the prescriptive part of it, right? So the descriptive part of it, we all agree that people disagree with certain moral things, but we all agree, at least in here, 1 + 1 = 2. It's an objective fact. But let's say Cheshire didn't agree. Let's say she said, "Hey, Steve, 1 + 1 = 3. I disagree with you." Does that no longer mean 1 + 1 = 2? See, she's been drinking. She can't do basic math. Goblins suck at math. And
I'm not. I don't agree with.
Actually, to be fair, according to the flat earther that was debating on Fight the Flat Earth channel like a month or so ago, math was created by witches, and apparently I was related somehow, so therefore Hitler was a witch. Goblins are witches, therefore goblins are exceptionally good at math because we're the ones who magically made it.
So does that no longer make 1 + 1 = 3? Just because she disagrees?
That's why I'm here.
What we would say is she's just wrong. That's it. And
rude.
I would agree with that, but I would also I would say you're not wrong. I would say Steve is not wrong, but okay, but that gets back into the difference in objectivity that we're talking about. One is objectivity in terms of it's verifiable. The other is objectivity in terms of it exists somewhere outside the mind and outside of a reality as we understand it.
Where in the literature is it used that way? I only hear theists mention that one, the second one.
Well, I agree. I only hear theists mention it that way, but that's why I'm getting on to. I think that's
because I don't use it that way because
I don't use it that way, but it is that way in Merriam-Webster, by the way. Webster's does have two different definitions. The first is expressing or dealing with facts or conditions perceived without distortion by personal feelings, prejudices, interpretations. And then the second one is
that's scientific objectivism. That's not what I consider to be.
Oh, hey, Cyrus is here.
Cyrus, not even wrong. Go ahead. What's the second one?
Relating to or condition of the realm of sensible experience independent of individual thought and perceptible by all observers, having reality. Oh, okay. So no, that's the.
I use that one. Yeah, that's the one I use.
Yeah, that's the one you use. And
yeah. Well, let me explain what that means, because that way everybody's on the same page. Because I've noticed when we used to have these talks about morality, one of the first things we would do is we'd say, okay, what do you mean by it? What do you mean by that? And they would never mean it. They would never have the same usages. So when I'm using the phrase objective, almost always, again, not talking about scientific objective. That's a completely different thing. But when I say objective in philosophy, that means that Nick and I can go look and we can actually see the same thing. We can actually discover the same moral fact. We have access to the same thing. For example, if I have a headache, that is subjective. Nick cannot get in my head and experience my headache. He is epistemically barred from doing so. But if I say, hey, like I'll use Matt Dillahunty's thing with chess. If Nick and I want to play a game of chess, we want to play a game of chess. That'd be fun. We'll do that off air. Sorry. She's not drunk enough for that. I don't think she'd even get drunk enough for that. Well, there was that last Friday, but okay. But if we want to play chess, then
I feel attacked.
We both. She's so violated. Then we can actually look at the game of chess rules and say, oh, okay, this is how objectively you play the game of chess. There you go. I can look at it. He can look at it. We both discover it. That's what we mean by objective versus subjective in this context. A moral fact that exists that we both can discover that is independent of human bias and of something that's internalized in the mind. Like pain is internalized in the mind. He can't experience my pain. It's subjective. That's why when you ask for a pain scale, it's a subjective evaluation.
Well, yeah, that's why they use the little happy face when you go to the doctor. Like, how much pain are you in? And it's just a happy face that gets sadder and more angry and upset as you look at the chart. How much pain are you in? Like, you're never going to feel that person's pain unless we can, like, get to the point where we're able to download experiences, in which case, like, upload and download. If we ever get that point,
it wouldn't matter. That still wouldn't matter. You're still making a copy at that point. You're not experiencing that actual person's pain. By the way, have you ever noticed in the shows, they always say 10? It's like, dude, if you're a 10, you're screaming.
Oh, yeah, there's a lot of... Anyone who's a 10 can't answer the question.
I'll tell you guys this. I've actually been writing down. I've watched a lot of this is off topic, but you know how we are on this channel. I watch a lot of medical shows, right? I've watched Older ER, and I watched Chicago Med and The Resident, and you name it. And I've noticed a pattern, and so I've written down a bunch of stuff that happens in every single thing I've ever watched. It was a medical show, and I have a list of the same exact plots on every single one. And I mean, literally, I've watched one, and then I've watched this other show, and they're the same exact thing.
Mm-hmm.
It's like they just recycle the same plots. But anyways,
chess and
go ahead. I got somebody messaging me.
Oh, well, actually, I was thinking
that's how I use objective. That's all.
Well, and then the other one, morality and ethics. The difference as I see it. They're close, but they're not quite the same thing. Ethics is a rule, a set of rules that you're supposed to follow for one reason or another, whereas morality is what you get from your interpretation of how you're perceiving the environment that you're in. So, for example, a lawyer has a code of ethics. It's not a code of morality, it's a code of ethics. Now, sometimes his morality may conflict with that code of ethics. He may, for example, admit to the judge that my client, Your Honor, is guilty. Okay, he may have done the moral thing, but he's violated his ethics.
Let me I'm going to go on a limb here, only because I'm talking to you. I agree with you in a nuanced discussion. If I was talking to you and we were talking about morality, there is a slight marginal difference between ethics and morality, especially if you read Encyclopedia of Philosophy, IEP, they actually make a distinction to be had, but it's minor. But they also say that for all practical purposes, they are identical. They're synonymous. For every
Well,
for every
would
type
it
of thing.
be?
Well, the only minor difference is that he's right. One is internalized, one is externalized. And more often you hear when we talk about ethics, we talk about bioethics. We talk about ethics in the business environment, right? You don't
Yeah,
hear
would it be
about
reasonable
morality in business, right? So there's marginally slightly nuanced technical differences, but to the average person, they're the same thing. You don't need to worry about
Okay, so
that.
would it be reasonable then to say that ethics apply in a specific area, whereas morality applies on a more social whole?
Morality is
So, like,
more
ethics are
externalized.
usually more
Ethics are
specific.
internalized.
And then if the morality is to be objective, then it applies to everyone at all points in time.
No, that's absolutism, which people get confused on.
So yeah, this is what I mean.
Objective just means we both can access it. Absolute means it applies to everybody.
Okay, so yeah, I think that's probably more the contention that people have in the differences of when people are referring to whether something is objective or not. Because a lot of the time when you get into the theist point of view of an objective morality, they mean objective as in it applies to everyone all of the time. This is objectively true for everybody always. If I jump, I'm going to come down. This is an objective truth. It's absolute.
I wouldn't I wouldn't conflate them, because what's the difference of absolute?
Well, I'm not trying to conflate them. I'm trying to separate them.
Relativism, right? So
sure.
You have absolute, then you have relativism, then you have objective, then you have subjective, right? You can have an objective thing that is not absolute. But we got a super chat real quick, and actually, Capturing Christianity says objective just means true, independent of human opinion. So, like, it's objectively true that the Dallas is in north of Houston. True regardless of human opinion. That is true. But also, did you notice that Nick and I can go look at a map and see that Dallas is north of Houston, right? So it is something we both have an access to learn that fact. That's why it's objective. Whether I believe it, Dallas is south or west or east makes no freaking difference. We can go look at a map and find out. Do you want to read the super?
Well, you can make the argument that I think one of the ones that Matt Dillahunty used to use a lot is a rock a rock whether you can observe it or not. It's objectively, is it a rock? Is that objective or is that absolute? Right? That's what I'm talking about. I'm not making the argument. What I'm saying is that I think when people are arguing and they're having this discussion, I think these things do get conflated. And that, what does somebody mean when they mean objective?
Yeah, I think a lot of times they conflate it with absolute, right? Because they say, like, is there any morals that apply to everybody? Well, I'm not an absolutist. If anything, I might go to universalism, but that's a downgrade from absolutism.
Yeah, so the argument shouldn't be whether or not God's laws are objective. The argument should be whether or not God's laws are absolute.
Yeah, no, I think that's a good way to put it. You want to read the super chat real quick?
Oh yeah, sure. Helios 57545 actually, Chesh, that technology exists, but it requires brain surgery to implant, but works in real time, which is really cool. I've heard about that. It's super neat. It's about you can experience someone else, or you can essentially move someone else's hands from like another room. It's really cool. We're getting there, is what I'm saying, and I think that'll be a really interesting ethics discussion, or a discussion about whether or not it's like, what does it mean to feel somebody else's pain? Is that pain always going to be subjective, or will we get to the point where no, a doctor can essentially like take a brief look into this person's mind and see exactly where they're feeling pain and judge it themselves?
Yeah,
right,
Steve's right.
Yeah,
because
how you experience someone else's perception is going to be different than how they experience it.
Exactly.
Sure, but what we're talking about is...
It's just another stage of regress at that point.
Well, it depends.
Second, if I stab myself, right, and let's say Nick has mirror neurons, or they medically make it so that if he feels the pain, he's still not experiencing my pain. He's experiencing his own pain. That's just a copy of mine. My pain is my own. Nobody could ever experience my pain. Nobody. It is internalized.
I think you start
I
think you start realistically blurring the lines at that point. I think at that point it's more of a semantic issue than an actual reality issue. Because like if I can go ahead and say that I'm going to experience this person's headache, and the only difference is that it's because there's arguments to easily be made that if we're gonna start getting into sci-fi, that okay, well, we're going to simulate it as exact as possible to the point that we put the proper brain like you make the adjustments that need to be made, right? So that, because there is going to be a difference, right? Because it's obviously your body, it's your brain, it's your hand. Your hand isn't the same as my hand, so therefore you're going to feel it differently. Or you have different chemicals in your brain than my brain, therefore our bodies are going to respond differently, and they're going to interpret the information differently, even if they are getting the same information. However, you start blurring the lines when you start making adjustments. So they say, okay, so this is the level of serotonin, this is the level of et cetera, that was in this person's brain at this time. So now we're going to artificially adjust it for this person over here who has this level of whatever in their brain.
I'm honestly, I cannot come up with an impossible scenario where you can actually experience my particular pain.
You ever seen the movie Brainstorm? Because that's exactly what they're fucking talking about.
I haven't.
I think it gets to the point where
simulated, but my experiences are internalized. Other people can have their own experience, but all they're doing is perceiving something of their own perception that emulating mine.
I wonder what it's going to be like if we're ever at the point.
There's a huge difference to be made there.
Well, this is okay. So this is something that I would find interesting. And again, we've gotten a little bit off topic. But if we do the save state system, right, which essentially means that you can download your brain from this phone booth over here. You walk out of the phone booth and get hit by a car. All right, you die. So what do? They upload everything that is your experience that you uploaded in that last save state to a replica of your body. Who are you?
Yeah, I think you're a new individual, actually, but that's the way I look at it. But again, I like Mirror.
If anybody hasn't played Soma, go play Soma. Can we make Steve play Soma on stream, please? Please, can we do that?
Nick wrote a paper on mereological nihilism, so he probably might agree with me that once your body is gone, your consciousness goes somewhere else. I don't think you're the same person any longer. But I don't think you're an object to begin with if you really want to get technical. I mean, if you want to reduce everything down, nothing really exists. It's all illusionary. But yeah, okay. Look, when I see a color, Chesh, when I see something imaged in my head, right? That color is phenomenal, right? It has no ontology whatsoever. It doesn't exist independent of my brain, correct? Now there are theories out there like projectivism, like you project colors.
What you're perceiving.
Yeah, and there's universals and things of that nature, right? But let's say forget the universals, forget particulars. The phenomenal thing that I'm seeing, a color, the phenomenon that's happening in my brain, I'm the only one that can experience that. It's in the mind, my mind. You cannot have access to that mind. It doesn't work that way.
I don't know. I think we can get to the point where I agree with you as of right now, but I think those lines start to blur when you get to the point where if you can download the entire experience of who you are and everything that you've experienced up to this point, and then I can download that into my brain, that means, as far as I'm concerned, if you're doing it right, that I can experience, I now have access to your experiences directly. Again, I still might interpret them.
Copy.
Let me finish. I still might be able to interpret them differently. I'm not saying a copy, I'm saying me. If I take your experiences and everything that you are as a person and everything that you've ever had as a person, and I download that into my brain, I can then essentially remember your experiences, which essentially means that I can see things the way you saw them at that point in time at the best of our abilities. So does that mean I am new? No, but does that mean I have access to your experiences as you saw them at the time? Yes. Now I might interpret it differently because I am still my own person. I do still have a different way of that I'm going to interpret that information, but it does mean that I can essentially see
Yeah,
the color that you saw.
I disagree with that.
Well, I think without the interpretation, or I think the interpretation's baked into it anyway. So because
it is,
you're going to
absolutely.
interpret it differently, it's not going to be the same. The only way to interpret it the same is if you became that copy, in which case it's no longer you doing the perceiving.
But here's my argument, Nick.
Yeah, if it's a copy, then something different.
What she would be experiencing is merely a copy of whatever it is I experienced, right? She could see it, but she's having her own experience. Her experience is internalized, right? All her mind is in her side of her mind. All she's doing is taking a copy of what I'm experiencing and putting it in her mind. She's not entering my mind. She's making a copy. My mind is forever. You can never get into somebody's mind, even in science fiction. There's no possible way to actually do that. I mean, it's just, I don't see how science can ever progress where you can say, hey, look, I am one with that person. We are sharing the same conscious mind. I don't think that's physically even possible.
Well, it wouldn't necessarily
once you download it,
it wouldn't necessarily be the same conscious mind. Well, what I'm talking about would be two different scenarios, right? One scenario is you have a blank slate, empty person that you essentially made a copy of their body that has all the same brain chemicals, levels, everything, hormone levels, everything is an exact copy of your body. You have cloned. Then you put your previous experience and your previous interpretation of that experience into that body that is at the same place that your body was when you last saved. The second one is that if you were to take your memories, your experience up to this point at whatever level that they're currently at and import them into somebody else's mind so that way they can essentially see things through your eyes and interpret them in a way that you have. So if you were to take somebody who's like, there's no way for Steve to know how a psychopath thinks. But if Steve is able to download the information uploaded by a psychopath, he might be able to see the logic and reasoning and through that experience. That would not be an exact copy. That would not be your experience, those things, but it gives you access to that information.
I've been online 8 years. Things. I assure you I've experienced psychotic people. Moon, $5.
I'm not saying you haven't. That's not what I said at all.
I'm kidding. Moon, thank you for your super chat. I still don't. I understand your argument, but I think it's missing the bigger picture that you're still not experiencing my actual qualia. Qualia is individual.
Let's perhaps put it a different way, and then Intrigued Feline asked an interesting question, but let's put it a different way for a second, which is I think maybe a better way to explain this is what she would be experiencing actually would be objective in the sense that everybody could look at it. So you could to roll it back to an original example of this.
Okay.
If we were printing it up onto the screen, everybody could see it, and you'd have this objective interpretation of that event. But it is still an interpretation of the experience itself. So you now have an objective interpretation of that experience. So now we're just getting closer and closer and closer to replicating that experience. But in all cases, it is still going to be an interpretation of that experience. So you observing it are still not participating in it. So it is
right.
By definition an objective observation of Steve's subjective experience. Ergo, it's still two different things.
Right. And that's why I'm saying it starts to blur that line. I'm not saying it cuts it off. I'm not saying it becomes this other thing. I'm saying at that point you start to blur it in that now. Especially if you're talking about the situation where you have taken a blank slate and you have imported that information into a new body, right? That's talking about like if we were robots, essentially, or if you could create a body that was the equivalent of your body at that time frame. Like you would also change the interpretation if you were to take that information and take a younger or an older body of somebody and put it in, because you would have different chemicals to be firing off. So you'd end up with a different experience anyway. But what I'm saying is that at that point you start, it doesn't mean the lines will ever be gone. I'm just saying you get closer and closer to something that would be better for the judicial system, it'd be better for psychology, it would be better for, like, we would be able to make a lot of advances in having a better understanding of the human psyche and the human individual.
Yeah, I agree
And
with
morals,
that.
for that matter.
I think that none of it's going to be resolved until like we actually get a firm handle on the mind-body problem, right? The mind-body problem is something to me that is one of the most insurmountable things in all of philosophy. I don't know how it could ever be resolved. I think it's. I mean,
we have to become only minds.
Well, let's look at this from a materialistic point of view, right? And by the way, super chats get split with Cheshire. So some of it goes to her doggo, Puck. I got to pay a producer for doing this because it's the Caffeine Corner. So I actually have been losing money by doing Caffeine Corner lately, but got to pay my people, because I'm not going to be like other people who don't pay my co-host.
Hey, so, Steve, that was just a rumor. Ansgar made as much money as I did. Oh, never mind. Yeah, sorry.
So let's look at this. Let's look at this from a materialistic point of view. Let's say all there is material, which is fine. I'm not a materialist, but let's assume not a substance dualist, but a monist. I have a thought. Okay, now if this thought that exists in the brain as whatever capacity it is, phenomenal, whatever how you want to describe it, it is a concept, right? I'm thinking of a concept, right? I want to move my hand. Thoughts have no ability to actually do anything mechanistically, right? It's just a concept. It has no ontology.
Well, conscious thought doesn't, but subconscious may. So I would probably
no consciousness does. Consciousness is by definition conceptual, right?
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. The conscious part of your mind, yes, but the unconscious part of your mind, I would probably argue no.
How does my unconscious part or unconscious part, which is again conceptual, it's abstract, able to be transmitted in a way? Hang on, what's the bridge of the mind-body connection that allows a conscious thought to translate it into something that actually is movement, like my hand? I'm moving my hand.
How does that happen? Do you need a mind to move your hand?
Yes. Well, I mean, sure. I mean, you can move my hand for me, but I mean, the wind can move my hand.
Steve, don't play games, Steve. You know what she Steve, you know what she means.
It's Cheshire. I don't know what she's asking. I mean, yes, I need a mind to move my hand.
Do I need to make a conscious decision to rip your balls off?
Again, I'm not understanding this line of reasoning.
Okay.
There's a difference between the overwhelming desire and making the decision. Because most people in Steve's presence have at some point had that desire.
No, I'm not talking about either. I'm talking about.
So
hang on, I want to make this very clear.
Hang on. You're interrupting and dodging me right now.
I'm not dodging you. I don't think you fully understand the
bullshit. Oh well, maybe the wind moved my hand.
Okay, so you're gonna solve the mind-body problem. You're gonna tell us how a concept can actually cause action. Okay.
No.
Over on Ask a Philosopher, we run a much tighter ship. Even when Chesh comes in as a guest, we run a much tighter ship on it.
Really?
We've been the three of us on Ask a Philosopher before. Yeah, we got stuff done. I'm just saying.
All right, go ahead. I'm curious.
No, I'm separating out the difference between the conscious mind and the unconscious mind. So for consciousness, sure, but your consciousness is the last part of you to know that something is happening.
Again, this doesn't solve the problem. What's the mechanism by which something that's abstract causes something?
What the fuck am I? What's going on?
Am I missing something here?
I think so.
Chesh, do you have any of the wine left? Chesh,
sober and that's.
Hold on. Can you give me the bottle? There you go. Thank you.
Yeah,
there you go.
I'm going to get the bottle. I'll be back. Hold on a second.
Somebody can explain to me in the live chat because I'm not understanding what the hell they're talking about. I'm asking, how do you have an abstract do something that's concrete? How do you have something that's a concept do something that's ontological? Have a physical manifestation? How does that happen?
I'm a materialist. I don't think that I think the only abstraction is just the vocabulary. I think the reality is it's all electrical impulses anyway. I don't think you have to bridge that gap, but that's me.
So you don't think consciousness is emergent? You don't think consciousness is something that's phenomenal? No. Okay.
Nope.
You're straight mechanistic.
Yeah. I haven't used the term mechanistic. Naturalistic. Yeah, I don't think there's anything.
Okay.
That's, well, I suppose you could have an emergent that's naturalistic, but I don't. Yeah. Okay. So mechanistic.
Well,
let's call it that.
I have a will. I want to will my hand to move my hand. It's a conscious thought.
Yep.
Now, consciousness is not material. There's no material. Consciousness is not made of anything. It's abstract.
Well, the word consciousness isn't made of anything, but it's to describe what happens to when you get enough neurons together and they can form a map to understand that they're understanding. That's nothing that we know how to get a computer to do that. We just haven't been able to build one strong enough. Thank you, Chesh. Please, just okay, can you hand me the bottle? I'll take that bottle. Right, that's not. I'm not there. There we go. Other way. Thank you. There you go. Thank you very much. Oh, it's white now, but this is perfect. Thank you.
Super chat. 10,001. Hey, there's an unusually sexy. There's an unusually sexy bearded person in the middle of the screen. It's like looking at 2018. He thinks you're sexy. That's sexual harassment. Did you ask his permission to objectify him?
No, I know you're making this up. I totally know you're making that up.
No, I'm not. Right here, Kawasa. Hey, there's an unusually sexy bearded man in the middle of the screen. It's like looking at a mirror. I'm reading it right now.
Okay. So the reason I'm sexy is because I
think he meant to the right. I think he meant to the right, but whatever.
We also got a question. Oh, sorry.
Maybe the super chats. Rez, $5. Doggo donation. Thank you. Helios, $5. Nice. Brain injury can alter how people experience things and alter who they are. Take this concept and instead of random changes, use a template and target. And yeah, our whole lives are experiential. Look, our looking at reality, nature didn't give us the exact tools of what reality is. It said, hey, what is probably the best fit to whatever our environment is? Whatever base realism is, we probably have no freaking idea and probably we're completely wrong. I mean, we could be.
Well, yeah, if you want to get an example of that, is just how many corneas does a cuttlefish have again? Like 42 or something stupid like that. How many colors can that fish see that we're just like, what? Because we got 3 or 4 in some cases.
People that are what are they called? Tetrachromographs that have multiple rods and stuff like that. They can see multiple colors. Octopus can see different things. I mean, so whatever reality is, this is what evolution says is best for us, right? Moon, $5 for Puck. Yay! I think that might have covered my expenses at least, so that's good. Thank you.
Salmon player said, I have a question. What is the most valuable property of morality?
To me, the most valuable property of morality is the ability to do right and wrong that brings the least amount of harm to people. I mean, I'm not a utilitarianist. I don't think that we should, based upon our morality, what's best in society. I'm not even a consequentialist. I don't think we should look at the consequences. I don't tend to what's called deontic theories. I tend to aristaic theories, which is mostly character, like virtue ethics. So when I talk about ethics, I'm saying what is virtuous from a character point of view, from what we consider the self. I don't base it upon, okay, is this going to be the most utility to the most amount of people? I don't think that's a good way to go about having morals. So to me, when you say what's the best about morals, it is if you do the right thing, I think overall in society, you're going to have the best consequences and you're going to have the best, most fruitful, flourishing society as a whole. And then you have people, of course, that are not going to be ethical. We know a lot of them. Shit people exist. What happens when you have too many shit people? It just makes society go to hell. So I think overall society is benefited when you have more people that are actually ethical. That's my opinion.
I'm going to say the ability to rise the tide for all boats. I think that's it. Makes things better for everybody.
Make everything better for everyone as best to our abilities. Yeah, I would say that's the most beneficial thing at the very least.
Yeah, I mean, what's the whole point of having morals to begin with, right? We only have morals because we learned over time through evolution that, hey, we shouldn't steal because we don't want to be stolen from. Hey, we shouldn't go
because we're social.
Primate in the head because we're social creatures, right? We've learned what we don't like.
we're very lucky in the evolutionary and social hierarchies because we aren't just social creatures, we're also apex predators. And because of that, we've essentially and because we're omnivores as well, we're not reliant on one type of food. So because of these three factors, the only real competition we had once upon a time were wolves, and wolves did not develop communication the same way we did. Same with most primates. Most primates did not and have not developed to this point yet the communication capabilities that we have. That's why they're far better at counting and numbers than we are on a standard, just a basic level. And I don't mean complex mathematics. I mean, if you throw some coins and pick them up really fast, an ape is more likely to be able to tell you exactly how many there were than a human being is.
Yeah, we say
I did not know that last one.
Birds can problem solve pretty well, right? I mean, so we
source check me, bitch.
We are definitely related.
I'll take your word for it. I don't need enough. I've had enough humiliation for one night. Oh my god.
Well, this is why I think empathy and compassion is critical, because if I say, hey, look, I don't want Nick to come out and hit me in the back of the head, right? I just prefer that he doesn't. So I'm not going to go up and hit him in the back of the head because I have empathy. I know how he'll feel about it because I know how I'll feel about it. I think that's something that is biological. I think that's something that's been developed through social evolution and through biological evolution. You don't need a deity for that. And I think that's where Woods makes his mistake in the debate that he has tonight. He's saying for some reason that in order to have morals, somehow it has to come from a deity. And S.J. Thomason said the same thing in a super chat, by the way. She said, if you have moral duties and responsibility, or moral duties and obligations, that means an objective morality that can only from God. Where does she get that argument from? There's no evidence.
But was Wood actually saying that? I mean, was he? Because I don't think he was arguing specifically for some form of divine command theory. Just that they exist, but not necessarily that we know what they are. We're struggling to figure out what they are, and we disagree over the body. But they exist. But the problem is that he can't demonstrate that they. If we can't figure out, if we can't agree on when it's okay to kill, for example, Anglicans have a very different view on this than Catholics. They all believe in the same, God of Abraham. So if they can't agree on it, where is the demonstration that there even is a God that is giving these objective moral duties?
Let me give you
Did you say Anglicans?
Yes, I did say Angelican.
I've never heard it pronounced that way.
Anglo-Saxons?
Anglicans, the Anglican Church. I'm on 2 hours of sleep. You will have to forgive me.
Oh, I'm sorry. I thought that was a different way of pronouncing it.
No. Oh yeah. Oh yes, it was. That was how we pronounce it in the suburbs of Massachusetts. I don't know where you're from, but that's how we pronounce it.
Nick, would it make sense for a parent to have kids and say to the kids, hey, we're not going to instill any morals in you. We're going to let you figure everything out on your own. First of all, that kid's probably going to get killed at some point.
I don't think that's possible.
Yeah.
They're not going to grow up with a very well-formed ethical framework, and that parent is going to be a bad parent. So if God has all these rules that he has, and he has, what is good and what is not good and what is permissible and what is not, for whatever reason, because either he came up with them just arbitrarily, said, oh, I like this, or two, there's some value that's higher than him that he's beholden to, which seems to go against many different things like sovereignty and aseity and a whole bunch of other freaking things that they posit. So I don't understand positing the deity that says, hey, I'm not going to tell you what these actual rules are. You just have to figure them out over tens of thousands of years.
Angelican are the people who worship Angelica from the show.
I got bailed out.
That's true.
Helios 575 for 5 said wolves were our only competition, so we made them our allies and sabotaged them into being things like pugs, pretty much. So I want to specify really quick.
If that first wolf would have known what his descendants would have been, he would have eaten that group that he came across.
To be fair, wolves are still around. We also are one of the only predators to hunt our competition instead. Like put effort in the additional effort, because for most solitary animals, it's not worth it to try and take down a singular wolf. But because we're not, that's what I mean by our only real competition. I don't mean that we didn't have other other apex predators to compete with. I mean that wolves were essentially the only other social apex predator.
They were the only ones that could have become us.
Exactly.
Yeah, they could have to evolve the same way we did. Wolves were probably the next in line, and we just happened to we developed communication that long ago either. Actually,
yeah, we developed communication, and we stand on two legs. Those are those are essentially, we have 4 limbs and stand on 2 legs. Those are essentially the biggest changes, because standing on 2 legs sure as like standing on 2 legs as like a constant, not a sometimes, like a bear. Standing on 2 legs all of the time opens up our arms to do a lot of shit. As soon as you develop a backpack, everyone else is fucked.
Well, I did want to say, though, to get to Steve's point, I don't think that that's the argument they make. They make an argument that gets them one step down the line, but has 20 other problems when you get past that. The argument is, oh no, God made it crystal clear. God did give directions. They're crystal clear to absolutely everybody who opens their heart, and everybody who isn't a Jehovah's Witness, Mormon like me, who isn't Methodist or who isn't Calvinist or Lutheran or like me, would know if they just opened up their hearts and they've been led astray by Lucifer and so on. And it's this level of self-denial that's really it's just because you think the next step, every single one of them, and Matt Dillahunty did that one, which was my favorite. I'm gonna steal from Matt Dillahunty because I like this one a lot. If you want to know what's wrong with Judaism, ask a Christian. If you want to know what's wrong with Christianity, ask a Muslim. If you want to know what's wrong with any of those, ask a Mormon. If you want to know what's wrong with the Methodists, the Calvinists, the Baptists, ask the First Southern Baptist Church of Memphis. If you want to know what's wrong with the First Southern Baptist Church of Memphis, ask the second one. And it's like I think they've all convinced themselves that they have found that single truth, and it's very easy to find if you open up your heart and yada yada yada, and you will land wherever they are. But I think that's how they get around it.
We need to bring somebody on, just because I don't think the 3 of us discussing it will be good enough. But we need to bring somebody on to explain, like, philosophically and theologically, the Trinity. Like the God, Jesus, Holy Spirit. We need to get somebody to.
There's only one position that, and again, it still is. It's the best of the worst, and that's called Mysterianism. Ever heard of that before?
I've never heard of that before.
Mysterianism is a position for the Trinity that basically, when they say, we have no freaking idea, but this is the way it is. It's mysterious. I am not making this up, okay? There's many different interpretations of the Trinity, right? I mean, you have modalism, subbilitism, you've got Mysterianisms, you got what was it with a P? Partialism. There's a whole bunch of different aspects of the Trinity. But they're all heresies. Every one of them is a heresy.
See, the only thing I can think of for the Trinity is that it's a literary device. It's a literary device. That's all I can really. I
don't think it's that.
I want to get I want to get. I don't want to get Ocean, not because of anything against Ocean. I want to get like somebody who actually believes in it, somebody who's studied it and is like, no. This is my interpretation, and I've spent time studying this, and this is what it is. I want somebody like that. Anybody.
Wait, the whole concept.
We're getting an Anglican minister on in time. He may. We can pass him off.
Send him our way. I would love to have that conversation.
The whole.
Probably already met him. He's on Twitter.
Did not come around until what, 300 years AD with the Nicene Council, or I think it was the Nicene Creed that actually the first time it was talked about. There's also the Apocalyptic Creed and the very apostolic incarnations that they had and whatever in the Catholic Church, but the Trinity was never talked about before that. There was no concept of the Trinity. It came after. I think they were just trying to add stuff, and this seemed to make sense to them at the time. And it just kind of persisted. But you asked one
Which
person,
I think
hey,
is why
the Trinity-
I think the Orthodox don't believe in it, and so I think if an Orthodox may not be a bad person to come along to discuss it too, because they at least often study it.
I have a
Yeah.
Orthodox. I mean, an Orthodox and straight Orthodox person that I could probably get a hold of. They
But
have
you
the beard all the
just
way down to
said
the-
that God made it clear.
Yeah,
Yeah.
he's Eastern
Oh,
Orthodox Church, and he's. But yeah,
Oh, yeah.
they don't. He doesn't accept the Trinity, if I remember correctly.
Yeah, and they hate the Catholics
I think-
because they blame the Catholics for wrong with. First of all, there was never supposed to be a pope. Paul wasn't supposed to take over. The whole.
Yeah,
There's a lot of
succession
infighting.
language.
There's a lot of infighting.
Yeah.
But it
Which
should
is
be
hilarious
simple,
because
right?
well, that's the thing. And when you talk to anyone who doesn't understand orthodoxy either, and you know, sitting there going, this isn't even the denominations of Christianity. There are 3,000 mutually exclusive sects of Christianity, where 3,000 sects that say if you don't believe in us, you're going to hell, and they all like to speak as if they're one unit when they're talking to atheists. But if you're not Catholic, you believe that everybody else is going to hell. That's part of you. That's what the Pope says. The Pope at one point was going to go back on it, but he reaffirmed that. And since the Pope is the vicar of Christ on earth, you have to believe it. He's infallible when it comes to church doctrines. So Protestants say the same thing. Lutherans, all that. There's 3,000 sects. Seventh-day Adventists. They all think that if you don't believe exactly what they believe, and then toss in the ones that aren't part of that are Orthodox, and then fall into other Orthodox denominations. Oh my God, it gets crazy.
Yeah, and then you got
you run into a lot of problems. Everybody's going to hell is the answer. Everyone.
You have one figurehead, so you know, like that one figurehead that actually speaks for God, like the Pope who says the Vicar of Christ for the Catholics. You got Mormons have a prophet. Great Debate Community has me. You always have one of these leaders, you know, that
the Holy Pope of agnosticism.
Yeah,
yeah.
Whatever happened to the Holy Trinity? It was basically it was Bullinator, me, and oh yeah, Frank, because he would look like Jesus.
I guess we have some. I guess we have some retconning to do.
Now. Yeah,
I think we have. Yeah, I think we have some retconning.
So we got God. Can I be Jesus now? Because I got the hair for it.
Do I get to be the Holy Mother Goblin?
Okay, but
you're clearly Steve, the Virgin Mary.
I obviously gave birth to Steve.
Oh dear Lord, this is getting strange.
Spent 9 months.
You do realize, Steve, the downside to being Jesus. Steve, the downside to being Jesus is you get crucified. I'm just saying.
He's a fucking martyr. He gets crucified on Twitter constantly. What are you talking about?
Yeah, I mean, I die 1,000 deaths every day, motherfucker. What the hell are you talking about?
Steve is basically
I got stigmata.
Steve is being crucified in perpetuity.
Yeah.
Jeez, yeah, I've seen your Twitter feed. You ain't kidding.
I actually just made it unpublic too because I was talking to somebody, then I realized that he couldn't see my stuff because he wasn't a friend of mine. So I took it off. I just kind of left it off for a while.
Oh, I gotta kick somebody.
I just go back and forth for a while.
Somebody recently was saying, I guess, that somebody was sending me screenshots of this conversation they were having, and they were saying that somebody was saying that you can only that Steve's Twitter is behind a paywall. And they were saying that he privated his account so you can only see it if you become a Patreon or if you're part of the inner circle. And my immediate response was, wait a minute, how many followers does Steve have? And so all of those people have to be paying at least $1 each a month at minimum.
4,000.
Except for so 4,000. You're getting $4,000 a month.
I am.
Minimum.
Yeah, okay. I'm making $4,000 a month, and I'm making like $10 in super chats right now, and I'm stressing for that because I was losing money on these caffeine corners, so I'm not making $4,000 a month.
It's clearly
where
because this person
up shit from.
Dude, listen, you are taking me to dinner. That's all. I'm here. I'm a guest. You didn't even invite me to dinner. I cannot believe $4,000 a month that you didn't even bother.
I will buy you dinner when I go to Boston. Yeah. So
The answer to this is
Well, maybe
clearly
for that $4,000 I'm making, because I sure the fuck don't want to make $4,000 a month.
Well, it'll
Now-
be Taco Bell, but still.
now. Listen to me clearly.
I'm lucky nowadays if I make 10% of that.
Now listen to me clearly. The answer to this is that's not how Twitter works, you slanderous bitch.
How do you hear these things? I don't pay attention any longer. So all these weird things that I hear, like I heard that
I know
I had
everything
heard
that's going on everywhere all of the time.
I had heard somebody had told me that supposedly for my mods they had to show me their ID, and I'm like, I've had how many mods over the years? I've never had a single person show me their ID. Where did that fucking come from? It's like,
well, yeah, there was a misunderstanding about.
somebody has to seriously sit around going, I'm gonna think of the most god awful stupid shit I can imagine and see if people believe it. It's like Helios
57545 said, at least Greek, Russian, and Siberian Orthodoxy believe in the Trinity, but it's not quite the same as the Roman Catholic.
Yeah, because the Roman Catholic don't know what they believe. It's like 3 and 1, and 1 and 3.
They get told different shit every time there's a new pope.
Yeah, there's never. I think it's one of those things they wish they would have retconned and took out, like Doctor Who. You know, they just changed the whole canon. I think they should have just said, you know what, we really fucked up about the Trinity. We're gonna.
It's not too late. They could still change that.
Yeah, in 100 years.
Oh well, they should. Yeah, there's a lot they should change. The you can't get married, the homosexuality, I mean, there's a whole bunch of the ban on
They should probably just. I mean, they added hell. I'm sure they could just as easily
condoms
take
is the
it
biggest.
out. Condoms,
Well, the condoms,
and
that's
vaccines.
They want me to procreate.
yeah, well, that's just that's catechism, but they're not all catechisms actually, but the condoms is just the Catholic Church. It's the Pope decreed it, and so there you go. So and they lie about that like there's no tomorrow.
Can we stop saying the new Pope is a cool Pope, please? That'd be great. If we could stop that, that'd be great.
I've never said that.
I've heard people making that argument before in the past couple of years, and I'm like, maybe don't, though. He's still letting a lot of bad shit happen.
He was so close to becoming. He was close to becoming a cool pope, but no. And then he just went back, and he came. Well, he came close to saying you didn't need the Catholic Church for salvation, and his bishops flipped the fuck out on him. It's like, I'm going to walk that back a little bit.
I remember that. I remember them saying, look, you know, because the Catholic Church is required for salvation, but you don't have to be a member of the Catholic Church. But the power comes to the Catholic Church, and then after you die, you can accept whatever. And they're like,
is that because they want money?
Yeah, I mean,
well, here's the reality. The Catholic Church sucks to be in. You got to go to mass. You got to wear condoms.
Well,
you can't do
I
that.
am not a fan of Catholicism. Straight up.
And so, if you could get salvation with the Catholic salvation, but from an American Baptist, which is much more warm and friendly. You know what I mean? You can party like an American Baptist, but get the salvation of the Catholicism. It's over.
Being universalist.
Yeah.
Universalists, they don't give a shit
well,
about
that,
anything.
and if you're not required to go to mass, and you're not required to give that 10% of your money every week, like there's a
you are so cynical.
A little bit.
You have no faith. Seth. You have no faith.
Yeah.
It's true.
The Virgin Mother
and seen St. Peter's.
I'm
St. Peter's.
I'm the single mom that smokes and drinks and like lives in like a crummy apartment above a restaurant and works like 2 full-time jobs and never sees their kids.
It has 50 cats.
I go to Rome. It's worth the trip.
My
I
kids
was
are
in
in
Rome.
juvie and I'm happy about it, so I don't have to deal with them.
The thing when I went to Rome, first of all, the cathedral at St. Peter's, you take a look at it. You take a look at what they built, all entirely off of indulgences, by the way. But and we'd have a hard time building that thing now, and it is genuinely somewhat obscene when you take a look at how much money is just lined in gold. But the other thing is, as you get there, you can go through the museum, and they all but say, these are the priceless artifacts that we have looted from Africa. These are the prices. They say where they're from, and they actually say it as you're going through. They don't say stole, but they come pretty close. They're like, well, when this collapsed, we managed to rescue these things. It's like, aren't these the ones that the indigenous people want back?
You want to tell me, why did it collapse again?
Oh, wow. Yeah.
These are the
Yeah.
priceless relic we saved after we lit the building on fire.
Yeah, somehow this ended up. We were in Jerusalem. We don't know. Saladin was there. There was a miscommunication, and we walked away with all of these. Yeah.
Somebody the other day said I wasn't been active on my Facebook much, so I've been trying to be more active on my Facebook, and I'm like, now I know why I hate Facebook. It's like, god damn.
Facebook is
Fuck,
bad.
it's
Facebook is worse than
it's-
Twitter.
It is.
No,
it is
Twitter.
the same.
Oh my! You can't be
worse.
serious.
Oh
Twitter's the
no,
fuck
I'm
up.
serious. Facebook is worse than Twitter. Twitter has a lot more things available and options available to you in getting in and out of conversations. And Facebook is really bad when it comes to trying to follow a conversation. My
I don't
goblet
the hierarchy of
mom
Twitter.
stole the bottle of wine!
No.
like
No!
No.
I don't like the way Twitter does the hierarchies. It's hard to follow sometimes. And I don't
There
like
you
the way
go.
it rants on Facebook either.
Oh, I thought she was going to give it back to you, but she's just like, I have. She wants everyone to know I've got it.
trying to find, like, for example, somebody messaged you on Facebook or they leave a comment and you click on it, trying to find it in a huge thread that has like 70, 80 comments.
She's not
you know,
gonna
and they
believe that I only had 2 glasses.
Never mind.
Listen, Facebook is shitty for following a thread because it puts everything at the bottom no matter who you're responding to. It just tags the person. So it just puts it
That's
at the
true,
bottom
yeah.
automatically and then just puts the person's name, even if that person has responded multiple times. So it's really hard to follow who's talking to who
It's
about
really hard to
what.
follow, yeah.
So whereas at least
But you can have
at
a real
least Twitter-
conversation there. Yeah, but on Twitter, because you're so limited, there's no room for nuance. It's much easier to take what somebody says out of context and deliberate. It is a troll's paradise over there because no matter how you can't. Yeah.
Well, the thing
It is. It's because you're
I've
limited to
noticed
250 characters.
I
Yeah.
noticed this on Facebook. I'll get in a discussion. The person won't know fuck all what the hell they're talking about. And then I will explain to them something, and then I'll get, oh, you're just a troll. I'm like, what the fuck are you talking about? I'm like, wait a minute. I'm using logic. I'm using reasoning. I'm using citations. I'm using academic sources. I'm basically just handing you, like 6 months worth of coursework, kind of shit. and they're like, oh, you're just a troll. I got that today. I'm like, dude, I got 5,000 Facebook friends, and you're calling me a troll on a subject that I actually like trying to learn about.
Yeah, you run
explain it to people.
You run into 2 problems, and neither are perfect. But if you could, if the Twitter would not be what it is if you were to make the character limit unlimited. It wouldn't be what it is. There are a couple things about following threads. There are a couple of things about following threads that are really difficult, but Twitter is very good practice for condensing your arguments. The best thing you can do on Twitter if you're trying to have a long conversation is to say ahead of time that's happening.
Steve, what does condense mean?
Mr. Seven tweet 250 characters per tweet apology.
I'm not familiar with this term.
That's
what I was asking. I've never heard of the term before. I don't know. What does that mean?
You're about as verbose as they get. I mean, that's what I hate about certain writers.
Actually,
man.
that's true.
It's like Stephen King, man. He uses like 10 pages.
Certain writers. Thanks.
Yeah, Stephen King. Have you ever read Stephen King novel? I swear to God, he can say what he has to say about. I love Stephen King, but it would take me a paragraph to what he spends a whole chapter on.
It's true. Helios575 for 2 says Reddit is far better than either of them. I would love to see a forum like Reddit implemented with a Twitter flair. So if Twitter implemented shit the way Reddit does, because it makes following the threads really easy because it's got the down here, down here, down here, down here, where people are responding, and then it cuts over, and then it cuts over, and then it cuts over. Twitter's really difficult to follow in that way if like multiple conversations have started in the thread, that it makes the web really difficult to follow because it doesn't really show you everything all at once. If Twitter had like a show all option where if I clicked on somebody's tweet that I know has been going on for like a month, and I said, if there was like a show all option and I could just view the entire, like everywhere it went, I would be so goddamn happy. I don't even care about the character limit.
Yeah, I'm not.
Facebook
well,
sucks.
A little bit better, but yeah, I'm not. I don't like any of these social media stuff. It's just you kind of have to use them, but kind of wish I didn't.
Some work in some way.
Yeah.
Somebody was trying to have an argument with me about the Bill C-16 in Canada, and they were saying that it was like speech policing. So they were making the Jordan Peterson argument that it was like, oh, you're policing my speech, you shouldn't tell me what I can and cannot say. But they didn't understand that harassment doesn't fall under free speech in Canada. So, like, yes, free speech in Canada is more limited than it is in America, but a lot of people in America don't understand that free speech only applies to the government.
Yeah, well, same thing down here. Freedom of speech.
For fuck's sakes!
Freedom of speech in America is actually the ability to have to criticize the government without fear of redress, without fear of them coming after you.
Exactly. It
right?
only applies to the government.
So when you're talking about, when you're talking about like free speech platforms like Facebook and Twitter, they're using a very narrow usage of the term free speech, which, by the way, you don't have. They do regulate what you can and cannot say. It's their platform, right?
So their argument was about Bill C-16, right? And Bill C-16 is the bill in Canada that added trans people to the protected classes. So, like, if your sexual orientation, your sexual orientation, your religion, your race, creed, etc., you can't be discriminated against. So there are hate speech laws in place. So you can't go ahead and say, you can't harass people with your speech. So that added misgendering to that harassment, but it does file under harassment, not just I accidentally mislabeled somebody, therefore they're going to get a $500 fine. No, if it's an accident, it's an accident, and the police this is not how that works. It has to be harassment. And the line of harassment, and this is what I was trying to explain, that I was like, listen, I'm not having this conversation on Twitter. I'll have this conversation with you, and I'm willing to discuss this on like a video format or a different format, but not on Twitter, because I need 250 characters to explain to you, because you're clearly not understanding the difference between American free speech and harassment laws in Canada.
Yeah, Helios points out, though, that harassment doesn't fall under free speech either in America either. Also, Helios, you might be care to know that false charges of sexual harassment doesn't cover under free speech either. That's called slander. Just throwing that out there. Hey, by the way,
libel, but at any rate, depending on how it's delivered.
Yeah, spoken.
The original
slander.
The original that I saw was libel, but
the original was libel. Actually, that's true. Yeah, the original.
But yeah,
it's libel. That's still, but both of them is actually defamation per se.
I asked the person to explain to me. I asked the person to explain to me the pre-existing laws of hate speech and harassment in Canada, and they just went off on a side thing, being like, bleh, bleh, and I was just like, never mind. Tell you what, I'm not having this conversation with you here. Not possible. I am willing to have this conversation and this debate or discussion, whatever, on like a video format or a call format, but Twitter is not going to work. And then like 3 tweets later, they're still haranguing me about having the conversation. Oh, I'm confused. I don't understand why I'm getting mixed messages. You seem to be wanting to leave the conversation, but you keep responding. Yeah, I'm responding to you telling you that this is not an appropriate place to have the conversation. I'm like, if you don't understand this, it does not surprise me that you do not understand the difference between harassment and free speech.
So speaking.
So I thought when you first brought this up, I thought you were talking about the one that got you're required to if and there was a whole bunch of misinformation about the transgender. If you suspect a child may be transgender, you're required to. And then there was bad reporting.
Oh yeah, that's a different. Yeah, that's a different one.
Yeah, okay. I thought that's where we were headed. Okay, yeah, no, this is a different one. Okay.
This is the Jordan Peterson one. The one that Jordan Peterson gets wrong constantly.
Hang on. Well, is there lag? I mean, I've noticed. Is there like lag in the vMix call? Every time I say something,
God?
everybody steps on me like the entire call.
It's just you, Steve. It's just you, Steve.
Is it just me?
They
I
just
don't
like
know.
to.
I can't
They
get
just
a
like
word
to
in.
walk. They just like to walk all
I
over
think
you.
they're just walking all
Yeah,
over
no,
me.
it's deliberate. There's no lag. I just wait when I'm talking to you. I wait another quarter second and then I go.
It's a conspiracy.
Yeah.
So I was saying, later on this week, I've actually got a.
So you see, like now, I'd start talking to but. Sorry.
Although I
please
do
continue.
enjoy that we're talking about a thing, and then Steve's complaining about getting interrupted because he wants to bring up a completely different topic about later on this week he's doing something.
Because I'm moving on from this because it's not going anywhere.
Go
ahead.
No, whatever I'm going to say isn't going to go anywhere. Probably because I'm a woman. Steve hates women.
Hey, we
wow.
let you speak.
Shots fired.
We let her speak when we first came on, and she didn't say anything. We allowed the woman to speak first, but she didn't say anything. I thought that was very magnanimous.
I'm not here. There's nobody. There's nobody hiding here behind this paper. I'm not associated with the stream in any way.
All right, what are you doing later this week, Steve?
I got the president of the Canadian Atheists coming in, Randolph Richardson. He wants to educate me on atheism, and I'm thrilled for that. So that's going to be amazing. We're going to have Topic Thunder, hopefully mod kind of thing. It'll be kind of a civil discourse kind of thing. I also will be on the podcast. What podcast am I going to be on? Hang on. What is his name? Oh, yeah, The Daily Atheist. That is going to be on Saturday, I think. It's going to be live, if I'm not mistaken. So that's going to be fun. What do you got going on, Chesh?
I don't fucking know. You kind of sprung this on me. We were having a conversation and you derailed it into shilling.
Yeah, nobody want to listen to Jordan Peterson, man.
We weren't talking. Oh my god!
I hate talking about Jordan Peterson.
Do you see a Jordan Peterson in this room? What day is it? It's Monday.
Monday, yeah.
Okay, so tomorrow I will probably be going live, and I'll be doing one of three things, and probably one of them will be combined with another one. So I might be playing competitive League, but I'm probably going to be doing art, and in that art I'm actually going to start setting up for that time of the month, which isn't until April. So on April 14th is going to be our next time of the month, and we're starting to go into incels. And half time of the month will be the 23rd. So then we'll be talking about Kaya and Onision, and that'll be on the 24th. On the 14th, talking about incels. So I'm going to send a couple explaining like in terminology and like, so if they post about this thing, this is actually what they're talking about. If they say something about this, this is what this word means, except we're going to be going a little bit into whether like what is a cuck, what is so we're going to like go into what they mean when what, and then we're going to have the fun of delving into an April Fools of incels. Oh, and if I'm painting, I'll be painting Lugia from Pokemon.
No, Ozzy. Randolph Richardson is mine for right now. He wants to chat with him at some point. No, you know what's funny, Ozzy? Randolph and we've been butting heads for a very long time. We get along in private. We don't get in public. It's a little bit more free for all. But I actually been in a group with him for a very long time, and we're very civil to each other in private. But in public, it's funny because I'm not even kidding. The Intrigue Feline could back me up on this. He legit had 5 fallacies in a row that he got wrong, that he'd misunderstood what these fallacies are. And I'm like, you're the president.
Oh, that's who you were talking about like 2 weeks ago. Yeah.
That was Randolph that got 5 fallacies wrong. And I'm trying to help him going, dude, let me help you with these fallacies because you're not getting them correct. And the Intrigue Feline actually copied them down. She might even have them somewhere what they were. But I was like, this is the state of atheism where you have an atheist who's the president of the whatever, and they don't even have a solid foundation on formal logical fallacies. It's a little disturbing, but he's going to educate me on atheism because he swears up and down I get everything wrong. And you know those are my favorite discussions. If somebody says I'm wrong about these things, I'm like, oh, awesome. I'm happy. They won't do it any longer very much. It's like nobody wants to play. Begala Scummer for £2. Cheshire and Nick are stopping Steve's free speech. You're goddamn right. It's elderly abuse, man. It's what it is.
Listen, I would like to point out real quick that Steve is completely throwing off everybody's groove because we're about an hour and a half into this and he's already starting to talk about shilling, which is usually what we do at the end of the show, but he didn't mention how long into the show. And usually we go for 2 hours. So he brought this in fucking sideways. He didn't be like, oh, okay, guys, I'm tired. I want to be done with the conversation, even though Nick and I are having a great back and forth. Like, no,
I know. What is
this? The show. Steve is done. Patriarchy.
Nick has to go. Nick has to go.
I'm going to have to go. I've got another show.
Nick has another show.
Well, that's fine, but nobody actually gave it. Right, but usually when you go into this, you're throwing off my groove, my man.
Sit there, look pretty. That's it. That's what you're hired for.
Wow.
You had one job.
Well, it's okay. It's okay, Steve. Nobody ever thought that was your job.
At least I do that one job well. Actually, Nick gets all the compliments. We don't get shit, Shesh. Nobody says fuck all about us. It's always look at who's that good-looking man in the middle with the nice suits. We don't get anything.
I feel like we should do another one of these soon because I think we had an interesting conversation.
Absolutely.
Until Steve interrupted it.
Oh, Jesus.
JP.
Yeah, Steve. Everybody saw that setup coming a mile away except me. Like, I think she's being sincere.
Well, I am being sincere, but also fuck Steve at the end.
as Bullinator, Bullinator's got to go too here soon. Helios $2. Cheshire versus Steve. Ageism versus sexism. Go. Sexism, ageism. Life experience beats gender.
Older people are more likely to be sexist.
By the way, nobody knows what gender she actually is. So, just saying.
Oh my god, it's
Frankly,
amazing.
I don't.
No idea.
People are so obsessed or concerned about whatever Steve's saying that I get completely ignored most of the time. It's hilarious.
I'm aware that I've been called ageist before, but I do have some objections to Steve streaming with a 17-year-old. But it's his show, so Jesus.
Yeah.
I got parental permission, guys. You saw my mom come in here.
Your mom's taking the wine from you about time.
Yeah. Delinquency of a wine.
How long did she know you were drinking that? Okay.
She told me I could have it.
Just throw her under the bus. Okay.
Just be a good girl. Just sit in the corner and drink your wine. Yeah.
I can't.
Sundays, my dad was like, "Here's scotch. Just go sit in the corner." And...
Here's a bottle. It's a White Russian.
So, Nick, what is your show tonight?
In Time is doing a news wrap-up. We've been doing, as you guys know, In Time covers breaking news, and on weeks like this is like the Iranian missile thing when they fired into 3 live shows a day on breaking news. Anytime there's something big, we go with it, and we're doing at least 1 show a day now just to cover what's going on with COVID-19, and that's it. We've got to wrap up now, but we literally, and then today breaking news because 3 states in the union have declared curfews, and it looks like a number more are about to follow suit, and there's talk in the White House about a national curfew.
Hey, Nick, are you going to be talking about... Are you going to be talking about the how the current virus is going to be affecting the North Carolina court system?
North Carolina.
Yeah, tell us,
I'd
like to know because the Chief Justice.
Oh, geez, that took me.
Yeah, but he as far as
the Supreme Court suspended. Supreme Court suspended today. Also, Supreme Court isn't.
No.
I'm not kidding. The U.S. Supreme Court are going to be hearing arguments today, as from today for the rest of them, and then into Tuesday.
That's the United States Supreme Court. They don't take the cases they want.
Oh no, I agree. But the only reason I bring that up is because this is affecting everything. I doubt it's going to affect that case because hopefully by the time it would affect that case, it's going to be done. Keeping people out of public places. My guess is anything that's non-essential in courts is going to get shut down within the next week. It's going to be my guess.
Well, I'm hoping that we get a signature in the next 2 weeks. So. It's slow.
Yeah, Jesus, taking so long.
Yeah, you know what's going to probably happen? COVID will probably go away in a couple weeks, and then it'll be like some catastrophe, like earthquake in North Carolina that shuts down the court system. I'm like, really?
It ain't going away in a couple weeks. Don't worry about that.
And Yellowstone will go up, right? And then aliens will invade, and then there'll be a gamma ray burst, and then a wandering black hole. I mean,
If
my luck.
if Yellowstone blows up, I don't think you're gonna have to worry too much about North Carolina. You'll be dead. You're in California.
No, actually, no. I'm actually okay because most of the Yellowstone will go actually towards the East Coast. It'll go toward New York and New Jersey. And all the,
so Kyle will be fucked.
I'm on this side of the Rockies, man.
So Kyle will be fucked.
I'm like on the
okay,
safe
gotcha.
side. Yeah, exactly. I mean, it'll be gaseous and stuff like that, but I won't get like lava flows.
But he's got all the passwords.
So you've heard it here first, folks. If it blows up, well, probably 20, 30 million dead, poisonous gas, but at least it'll get Kyle. It'll get Kyle. We're good.
Most importantly,
you see, those guys are advocating for the death of Kyle.
No, we are not. But we are all entitled to feel schadenfreude about any suffering Kyle may endure in the future.
That goddamn Yellowstone. Oh my god.
I mean, personally, I don't care. I would be more annoyed if Kyle died because now we have to go through YouTube, and going through YouTube is more of a pain in the ass than going through Kyle. I would rather Kyle survive.
All right. Anyways,
I'm going to be stealing your producer.
Yeah.
We all just said it at the same time. Do you see that YouTube, by the way, if anybody YouTube has quote unquote limited the number of people?
We can't hear you. We can't hear you. You're breaking up every second. Is that her connection?
That's her. I don't know.
No, I heard it.
That's on her end. Yeah. Is she like at her sister's place?
Yeah, I heard it also.
Wi-Fi. Now she's frozen.
Actually, it looks like she's frozen. No, she's moving again.
Yep.
Yeah, but she's like moving at like half a frame. Okay. All right, now try it.
So YouTube said that they were limiting the number of people reviewing videos, implying that YouTube has people that review videos, and that they have enough people that they actually have to send them home.
Yeah, I just had 2 videos reviewed. One of them got approved. The other one, we're sorry, but this cannot be monetized. No, it's not. And I
was surprised. Red's Rhetoric's me? Red's Rhetoric's video with JM Truth is monetized for some reason. Why? I don't know. My time of the months have been getting put through, and without needing to be manually reviewed.
Mine's 50-50, man. Like every one that I get that's approved, the other one is like this one. After manually reviewing your video, we have confirmed it's suitable for all advertisers. As a result, it will continue to run limited or no ads. This was a non sequitur show. T-Jump debate updates, disappointing news. How the hell is that? What the hell was on there that was not user friendly, ad friendly? I don't know. It wasn't that bad. Just need to stop.
One way of looking at it.
Video that's
Godless Scummer for 5 said one way of looking at it is that blank may remove the option of fleeing to Mexico for Kyle.
You people are evil.
I've adjusted my tags. That's what allowed me to get monetized.
Jessica, do you want to give a little preview of what's going to coming out next Wednesday?
No.
Okay. Never mind then. Thought you wanted at least
if you want to
a little bit. No, it's up to you.
Well, if you got if you guys are,
I defer all the major. Hang on, I defer all the major decisions to you, so you can own the channel. So.
If you guys are interested, Kyle was interviewed by Atheist Edge, and that's coming out on Wednesday. The only reason I'm telling you about this is because I had to suffer, so now you have to suffer. Go enjoy the suffering.
It's pretty bad.
It's something. It's something.
I love Jim.
I refuse to give any opinion. I refuse to give any on anything until after it actually gets released.
Yeah, I'll let them worry about. They're gonna, but yeah, go watch it on Atheist Edge. I'm a huge fan of Atheist Edge, but even I sometimes would go, really, okay. We should. How come, Nick? Did you interview Kyle one time? I don't remember.
I did not. We were thinking of interviewing him on In Time. We were willing to do it until the. We were strongly considering. We were going to reach out to him because we've done enough stories. We wanted to get his side of the story. But then once the once he filed the other thing, we were like, nope. If he's smart, he's not going to talk to anyone, and we're not going to push it.
I gotcha.
He's talking to people.
Well, he definitely wasn't smart, and he talked to people. Yeah.
Yeah.
He's smart enough. He's smart enough not to talk to you.
Yeah, we weren't going to be responsible for that. He should be handling things as best legally possible as he can, and
well, the thing
he's not going to. But you know what? We're not going to be a part of that.
Wait, handling things the best legally. Have you read the shit that he gave to the court?
I didn't say the best he could was competent. I'm saying.
Oh my God.
It's just the best that he could do. When you bury the bar in the sand.
A for effort, man.
A for effort, which is spelt with an E.
It was a little bit of a dumpster fire for us on In Time, believe it or not. We were just like, no, we're not going to.
For God's sake, everything was malformed from top to bottom.
I would be
so many things wrong.
Far more interested in seeing an interview done by In Time, personally.
Well, we were going to. We were gonna do it, and then once he filed about his claim, we're just like, okay, we're gonna take a break and see what happens.
That's a totally fair decision. There's a reason. So I was planning on doing a TLDR for non sequitur, but because Kyle was trying to drag it out, I'm trying to wait for it to be over so I can actually be like, this is done. This is where we're at. It's over. We're done. We don't have to deal with it anymore. So once that's finished, I'll finish off my TLDR for it. I have it like most of the way written, but I can't finish it until the issue is finished.
Oh, so what
so
you're saying is
we have it in our hot little hands. Gimme!
You're saying that the complete bullshit that I was dragging it out because every time it went on air, he had to send it to a non-existent lawyer to review the video. That I was dragging it out, or else it would have been resolved. That narrative is bullshit now? Oh, okay. Who would have thought?
Here, let me put it this way.
I remember he was...
Kyle is a liar.
Yeah, remember he was sending like 20. No, he sent somebody calculated. No, it was more than that. It was at least 20 hours of video that he sent to his lawyer. I'm sitting there going like at about $350 an hour. Yeah, that's. I'm sure he's willing to look at it, but
I'm like, no lawyer would. I've sent videos to my lawyer. You know what my lawyer said? He's like, just ignore that shit. He didn't give a fuck.
Well, there's been
not pertinent to anything.
That's because you've got a good lawyer. But most lawyers will sit there at that. They'll pay if you're paying. They'll look. Sorry, Jeff.
The only piece that I think Steve's lawyer looked at. Well, whatever. Okay, fine.
Yeah, no. Go ahead. He did look at one video. Yes.
The quote. I'm gonna quote it here. The original papers that I was served.
Yeah, he saw, and he also watched the entire the Death of the Non Sequitur show. That's one of the first things he ever watched. So yeah,
that makes sense. That gives all the context you really need for everything because even Kyle's like, yeah, no, it was a big deal. Listen, we'll talk more about this if we decide to. We may or may not talk more about this on sometime after next Wednesday when the interview with Kyle comes out.
Fair enough.
If
hopefully
people are
by
interested in
then
watching it,
we'll get a result. I'm hoping in the next 2 weeks. So that's my estimate. The clerk says it's going to be soon. So 2 weeks is what I usually. It's blame COVID.
All right, folks. I definitely need to get going.
All right, we're gonna wrap it up. Thank you guys for watching this. Sorry we got a little off topic, but that's how it usually goes. Like, subscribe, comment, share. Happy horseshit stuff like we always do.
Tell us if you want us to do another one of these.
Guys. We won't. Good night.